When I look back, I still wonder how I let it all happen that way. My name is Isabella, and for a long time I believed that I had found the man of my life. His name was Raphael, and he came into my life at a time of fragility. I had just come out of a painful breakup, and I felt alone, in need of attention, of care, of someone who would make me feel special again. And that's exactly what he offered me, or at least it seemed like it. Raphael was charming, how to make me feel unique. He would say things like, "I've never met a woman like you," and I believed it. At first, I didn't see anything strange. In fact, I felt that I had finally found a mature love, someone sure of himself. But there were little things, subtle details that I ignored. He talked about all the women in his life as if they were unbalanced, crazy, or too clingy. I thought it was just bad luck for him, not realizing that this was the first warning sign. Over time, his sweetness began to morph into something darker. I began to feel that nothing I did was enough. He criticized me in a veiled way, praised me, and, in the same sentence, diminished me. I could spend hours getting ready to see him, and he would say, "You look beautiful, but this dress doesn't value your body as much." I smiled, trying to take it as a normal comment, but inside I felt myself shrinking. The good times were intense, almost like a drug, but the bad ones left me without ground. He would walk away without explanation, disappear for days, and then come back acting as if nothing had happened. And I, confused and desperate, accepted. Because he always had a perfect justification. Work, stress, tiredness. And when I dared to question, he turned the tables. "You're paranoid, Isabella. You make things up in your head." I was beginning to believe that I was really exaggerating. That's how I started to doubt myself. What was once confidence has become insecurity. I no longer knew if my feelings were valid, if my memories were real, or if it was all just imagination. That was his game, and I was trapped. The last straw came when I discovered messages on his cell phone. They weren't just innocent conversations. They were explicit flirtations, scheduled dates. When I confronted him, I thought I would finally have a confession, an apology. But instead, he laughed. "Are you messing with my phone right now? You are pathetic, Isabella. I can't even talk to anyone without you freaking out." I remember the feeling of emptiness at that moment. I had the evidence in front of me, but he managed to make me feel guilty. After that, I lived a cycle of comings and goings. I tried to leave, but he always came back with sweet words, promises of change. And I, weak, believed. Because deep down I still wanted to rescue that charming man from the beginning, without understanding that he never existed. It was just a mask. The process of liberation was not quick. There were months of tears, sleepless nights, moments when I almost went back. But something inside me began to awaken. I realized that I was losing myself, that I no longer knew who I was. And I understood that if I continued in that game, I would end up destroyed. Today I can say that I survived. I still carry invisible marks, emotional scars that no one sees, but that remind me of what I went through. But along with them, I also carry a new strength. I learned that love is not control. It is not manipulation. It is not pain disguised as care. I don't tell this story to relive the suffering, but to remind myself, and anyone who needs to listen, that no one deserves to be a prisoner of a narcissist's cruel game. I freed myself, and you can too. Over time, my life began to revolve around him in a way that I didn't even realize. I found myself waking up already thinking about the mood Raphael would be in that day. If he was affectionate, I relaxed, breathed a sigh of relief. If he was far away, I would spend the whole day trying to guess what I had done wrong. He always had a subtle way of putting me in the place he wanted. He said I was awesome, too jealous, too sensitive, too needy. And when I tried to explain my feelings, he sighed deeply and said, "You complicate everything, Isabella. I just want peace, but you keep creating drama." I ended up keeping silent, swallowing what I felt, because I feared losing it. My friends began to notice. Gradually, I moved away from them. Raphael didn't forbid it directly, but he made comments that made me feel guilty. "Would you rather be with them than with me? I'm the man of your life, and you can't prioritize us?" And I, in an attempt to show that I was committed, stopped going out, stopped answering calls, until I found myself almost alone. He had managed to isolate me without ever having to ask me clearly. I lived with this man who humiliated me, made me feel useless. Everything I did was not useful to him, and there came a time when I thought that the mistake was in me when I did everything to help and to please him. The crises became more frequent. Any small disagreement turned into an argument. He would raise his voice, call me crazy, unbearable, and then disappear. I spent hours looking at my cell phone, waiting for a message that didn't come. When he finally appeared, it was as if nothing had happened. He arrived smiling, hugged me, said that I was the love of his life. And in that embrace, in that false display of affection, all the pain seemed to dissolve. I accepted. I always accepted it. The cruelest thing of all was how he managed to turn situations around. There was a day when he disappeared for the whole weekend. I was desperate, with no news, and when he finally appeared, I cried, saying I was worried. He looked me in the eye and said, "You're choking me. Can't I even have time for myself? This despair of yours is sick." I felt so small, so wrong, as if he were really crossing a limit. I no longer recognized the woman I was. Before meeting him, I considered myself strong, decisive, independent. Now, I was insecure, anxious, always walking on eggshells. My life revolved around not displeasing Raphael, not losing that love that deep down no longer existed. Sometimes I looked at myself in the mirror and couldn't find myself. It was as if I had become a shadow of myself. I didn't laugh like before. I didn't dream like before. I didn't believe in myself like I used to. And even realizing that, I couldn't get out. Something kept me stuck. The fear of loneliness, the hope that he would change, or perhaps that unhealthy attachment that only those who have lived can explain. And so, day after day, Raphael hooked me even more in his game. A silent, cruel, and calculated game, in which I was always the loser. The cruelest moment in my history with Raphael happened on an ordinary day, without warning. I was at home, preparing dinner, when he arrived annoyed, throwing the keys on the table with force. I asked if everything was okay, and he exploded. "You are a burden in my life, Isabella. Nothing you do makes me happy." I felt my body freeze. I couldn't answer. It was as if those words had pierced my skin and reached my bones. He didn't stop there. He kept saying that I was ungrateful, that I ruined everything, that without him, I was nothing. Those phrases echoed in my head like hammers. That night, he left again, leaving me alone with tears and dinner intact on the table. I didn't sleep. In desperation, I took his cell phone that had been on the couch. I didn't want to fool myself anymore. And there, between messages and conversations, I found confirmation of what I had suspected for months. He didn't just cheat on me. He talked about me to other women as if I were a burden, a weak, worthless person. The pain was unbearable. It was as if everything inside me had collapsed all at once. I trembled, cried, could hardly breathe. And yet, when he came back the next day, I still had the strength to ask why. His response was a cold smile. "Because I can. And because you'll never have the courage to leave me." Those words were the key that opened my eyes. For the first time, I didn't just feel sadness. I felt angry. Anger at having believed, for having shrunk, for having let myself be erased. At that moment, I realized that he was right about one thing. I wouldn't have the courage if she remained the woman he had shaped. But I wasn't just that. I still had within me the strength that he tried to erase. It wasn't easy. I needed support. I had to face the fear of loneliness. I had to rebuild myself from scratch. There were relapses, yes. Days when I almost answered his calls. Days when the longing for the illusion seemed stronger than the pain of the truth. But every time I remembered his cold smile, that cruel phrase, I clung to my decision. I wouldn't come back. Today, looking back, I know that Raphael never loved me. What he loved was the power he had over me. And I finally understood that true love does not humiliate, does not diminish, does not manipulate. True love is freedom, not prison. I still carry scars, but they no longer bleed. They remind me of where I came from, what I survived, and the woman I became again. If there's one thing I've learned on this journey, it's that no one deserves to live as a prisoner in a narcissist's game. I freed myself, and if one day you find yourself in a similar story, I want you to know, you can too. If this story touched you in any way, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video. Many women still live trapped in relationships like this, and your attitude can help someone see their own reality. Together, we are stronger.